At that time, they were making cars, but those were not good quality cars. On the other hand, GM and Ford, that was selling cars in US, were also not of great quality, but better than, of course, the Toyota cars. So you can think of Toyota cars more or less like cheap Chinese products that we get in India. So that was the mindset of Americans about Toyota cars back then when Toyota introduced their own cars in the United States. As you know, Japan is really small market, so they cannot grow big over there. So they really wanted to succeed in United States. So the question they asked themselves on how can we sell our cars, or how can we make our cars better, and that's where Mr. Toyota, who basically comes from the Toyota family, or whose family basically built the Toyota brand, came up with this idea of lean operation management. And they focus not just on one time improvement, but continuous improvement. So they said that whatever we do today, we need to improve tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. That's how they looked at each and everything that they did. And that basically, first of all, reduced the cost and then improved the quality of their products. And finally, they were able to build the same car that the American companies were building, but better and cheaper, and they were able to succeed in the United States. So, lean operation management is not just something for theory, it was something that Toyota believed in, implemented it, and gained much bigger success than they even thought or dreamt of. And the key is lean operation, the lean word, and the continuous improvement. Now, when you look at the lean operation management and what people are thinking of, at least in various companies, they are thinking of, do we have a lot of people doing the same thing and those things are not adding to the top line, which is revenues? And if that is the case, then we want to reduce those jobs, or we don't want to add any more new jobs over there. That's why you would see a lot of accounting software, because they don't want a big finance organization. They want to reduce the number of operations jobs. So that's why there is a lot of automation over there. The second point is inventory reductions. So earlier, what used to happen was that you would order in bulk, and when you order in bulk, you get discount. So people used to order in bulk, have huge warehouses where goods are sometimes stored for 6 months. Later, the finance departments of these big organizations and strategy leaders realized that our money is actually stuck in those inventory, and that inventory is not moving for 6 months, and I had to borrow money from outside to basically get that inventory. So that's when the introduction of just in time production came in, where they actually try to predict how much demand is there, and of course add plus minus to that and order that much inventory only. They are not interested in bulk discounts. They are more interested in efficient use of capital, and order only the inventory that they need for production, let's just say this month, not for the entire year. So that again simplified the organization. They don't need to have warehouse, they don't need to have more people managing it, and they don't have need for capital stuck in the inventory. Third is production time reductions. So big companies like Toyota, or companies that have huge production lines, looked at each and every step of the process, and they optimized each and every step to basically make things faster. If you want to think about this, think of a McDonald's restaurant. You order the burger, and the burger arrives at the checkout counter typically in 2 minutes. Now, if you order the same burger at another restaurant, they actually take more time. And the reason for that is that McDonald's has figured out what are the key steps they need to do. They, of course, even package a lot of stuff beforehand so that the customer is not waiting and they are able to produce faster. The same thing is applicable in car assembly lines, and that's what Toyota did. They ordered the inventory or whatever the small parts that they needed for 1 month of production line. They looked at each and every step, and if for some reason there is a weak link, they basically put in more resources or did automation, so the production never stops, and the entire cycle of the production goes down from 30 days for a car to even 1 day if possible. So basically they were able to move or produce cars faster by optimizing the entire chain and automation. So let me quickly talk about what we are doing at Carbon and how are we using these lean operation management techniques. So I run the operations team and we do hire people. And initially for first 3 months of the company, I was the only operation guy. That meant I was taking all the customer incoming calls. So basically, I was the person who was picking up the phone if you called our office number. I was the person who was doing the credit underwriting. I was the person who was approving card application. I was the person who was looking at KYCs. I was the person who was looking at your customer issues and all of that. Um, and we did that not because we didn't have money. I mean, we raised $2 million at that point, and that was in the public news, not something new, I'm telling. But there was no need to have one more person. So when you are doing your startup, you would want to think about how much revenues you're going to generate from one particular operation. And if your customer base is small for first 3 months, why do you want to hire more people? You would want to hire people based on the revenues that you would be generating or the cost savings you would be able to get. So you have to think about revenues while hiring, not hire because you don't want to do something or you want specialized skill peoples for each and everything that you're currently doing. The next thing is SOP. So at a lot of companies, you form SOPs, you form processes, and more or less every good company is able to form processes, but the problem comes in enforcement and you putting your foot down to say that we need to enforce this process. And the people who write these SOPs sometimes more or less come from academic background or sometimes are not willing to tell the people to follow the process. So enforcement is also key, where you have to be flexible but still ask people to conform to the SOP. And that's really important. Otherwise, you will not be able to achieve efficiency and your operations would not be lean. The third thing is, of course, the technology. Um, if you look at the previous days, everything was paper based. But when we started Carbon, and if you look at the new age fintechs, the entire thing is digital. In fact, on my table, as of now, I don't have a single office related paper. It's as simple as that. So everything is on cloud, everything is paperless. The customer with whom we interact has to provide everything digitally. Even though he has to print something and sign it, we don't ask for that paper. That paper has to be uploaded into the system. So everything is technology driven. Um, and we are going to deploy the chatbot also so that the customers themselves can get answers to their questions instead of calling us, so that we can be more efficient and the customers still get the answers. The fourth point is data analytics. So, about data analytics, what I really want to say is that you want to look at what is happening and use that data to your advantage to make decisions. Let me give you an example. So, since I am doing operations at Carbon, I have to look at the payment delays on credit card. So when I look at the payment delays, I try to identify who are making the payment delays, what is something common across these, and then make decisions based on that. So it could be based on the bank balance that is shared. It could be based on type of investor they had. It could be based on their own CIBIL score, where they kind of don't mind delaying payments. So you want to not just look at the data, but try to derive some conclusions from that data using data analytics tools and graphs, and then use that to your advantage on operations. That's pretty much I had to say about lean operation management. Um, I didn't plan to kind of like give you a lecture on lean operation management that you get from MBAs. I want to tell you more about just a brief history, um, what companies are doing and what we are doing. And I want to hear more about you guys and what kind of problems you are facing. And hopefully, out of this session, we are able to solve these problems or at least provide direction on how we can solve it. So that's all from my side, guys. Thank you. Um,
Thank you so much, Sunil. So, attendees, if you have any questions, please write it down in the Q&A section. Or, okay, so we have one hand raised. So, Surya, I'll allow you to talk. So, please put in your question.
Hey, Surya, before you ask your question, I want you to do one thing. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, what you do, and so that I get the context. And I would request everyone to say the same thing while asking the question or while introducing. Please talk a little bit about yourself before asking a question. Yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Surya, you're
Yeah,
audible.
you're audible.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sunil, for giving this lecture, and really great to know you as well. Uh, my name is Surya Saraf. I belong to an organization where we do manufacturing of fasteners, and I've been in this industry for about 10 years. And prior to that, I have been in technology for about 10 years, working with various CRMs and ERPs back in the US. So 10 years I've devoted myself to technology, and 10 years in manufacturing industry. Uh, Now, the challenge that I'm facing is inventory management within my own company. We have more than 3,000 SKUs within my company, and it is getting extremely cumbersome and difficult to manage the inventory. We overorder our inventories, and even though we have used technology, even though we have used SOPs, that's what you have rightly mentioned, that the enforcement of the SOPs is becoming a challenging task because people tend to do it for like 10, 15 days, and then again the same problem happens, that they ignore it, or they are not able to uh, keep up with the requirements of the SOPs, to be uh, to put it right. So we have implemented SOPs, we have implemented technology, but I'm still struggling with maintaining the inventory within my own company, though we are using the software and the SOPs.
Sure. Okay. Surya, let me ask you just a couple more questions. So you said you have 300 SKUs.
3,000.
2000, sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, if you have to tell me, if you have to make a guess, how many SKUs drive 60% of your business, plus minus?
About 500.
So, this is a very simple problem, but it's a very hard decision. And the hard decision is saying no to extra business, Surya. If 500 SKU drive 60%, and if we boil down to, let's just say, 1,000 SKUs that drive 90% of your business, the answer is actually in front of you. But saying no to that 10% of business is hard. But then it would allow you to focus on that 90% of business, and your top line would grow even much faster because then you have removed the headache of maintaining those 2000 SKUs and all these odd requests that you get, Surya. That will be my quick answer, but I would like to hear more from you whether this could solve this problem, or you need to do deeper analysis before this problem can be solved, Surya.
Actually, the industry that I belong to, a good company which is greater than us, they are able to maintain more than 10,000 SKUs, because uh, the customer would want all the different kinds of sizes to come to one place, and it is not by choice. It just happens that different SKUs are being created every day almost.
Sure.
So it's become a necessity, and we have tried to keep the inventory in like different bins, different buckets, and different areas, but people just mix them up, and they are not doing the proper inspection. If the material comes in challan, then they mention in the, if the challan is made mistake, they don't care to check it, and they put in the wrong SKU. So all these problems happen.
Okay. So basically, you're saying reduction of SKUs is not the solution. That's point number.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
solution has to, because if you do reduction of SKUs, how much percentage of business would you lose, Surya? Because there always would be another guy who might be maintaining, let's just say, 1 million SKUs, God knows. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you reduce your SKUs to just 1,000, you would not be able to survive from your,
No, we can survive. We can survive.
and you can still grow your business, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, talking about the problem where people are not able to do this, um, are these problems specific to managers, or you think this problem is just to the ground level guy who's not?
Ground level. Ground level.
And what about the manager? Why is he not able to enforce it, or what is his excuse of not getting this done? Surya?
Uh, Today only I had the meeting, and he says that people uh, they just get careless. And he says like, if I have to be involved with at a deeper level, then how will I be able to do my job, his particular assignments? So he said that the knowledge and the responsibility needs to come at from a lower level, and they need to be trained and trained even more. That's what his suggestion was, and make them strict that this is their responsibility, and this is what their requirements are. That at the end of every week or the end of every month, we will give you the data, and you will have to match with the inventory and give it to us. That's what his suggestion was, instead of him doing it. He
Okay.
says he's doing mostly at a digital level of data processing to analyze why things are going wrong. But at a ground level, this authority and responsibility needs to be given to the store people who are actually in the store.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you a few more questions, Surya. Do you have any incentive if people do it right?
No, not right now. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good suggestion.
Sure. So, and I am assuming that some managers or people under some managers would be performing well also, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I mean, here is the thing that I would suggest not part of lean operation as such, but basically giving incentives to the people to do the right thing. Of course, you don't want to put the stick, but of course, if one guy is really performing well, sorry, not performing even average and just come giving you excuses, then you have to let him go. But giving incentives to the managers and the workers could actually solve at least some part of the problem, or you will start seeing some results over there, Surya.
yeah. I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah. Um, because the manager cannot simply say that it is it is something he cannot solve. You know, at the end of the day, he needs to be responsible, not just for his work, but the work under him, because he has to be responsible. He just cannot say that training is needed and all that. He needs to take ownership of the work. Of course, if training is required, then you might have to, put additional budget for that. um, and tell manager that, hey, if you think a training is needed, find me the right training guy, manual or whatever. I will bear the cost. Let's see if that gives you the right results. But giving incentives and listening to their thoughts whether training is needed or not, and providing that training would bring you the results. Again, do think about reducing the SKUs also. Don't,
Yeah.
yeah, Surya.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot. I think I've taken too much time. Thanks,
No,
guys.
all right. Thank you, Surya. Um,
Yeah. So, is there anybody else who would like to put in their questions?
Also, Mr. Das, I want to do one more
Yeah.
thing, if you don't mind. So we have 8 participants, and as you know, in India, we don't like to raise our hands. Um,
Right.
Only the topper in the class always wants to raise the hand, and others don't. So let's just go alphabet wise and ask people to just maybe introduce themselves, and hopefully that will start a discussion, not necessarily a question. So I see
Sure.
Aditya there with a name. So just if he does not mind, ask him to speak for a minute, um, if he can. And if he
Yeah.
does not, then we will go to the next person. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Aditya. Would you like to speak?
You are on mute, Aditya. So you would have to unmute.
Aditya, are you there? Okay, so I don't think he wants to talk. So, Mr. Chakraborty, Dr. Chakraborty, you're there. So, would you like to speak?
Really, I don't have any specific questions to ask uh, the speaker today.
Okay, okay.
Actually, I was waiting for a little bit of more narration from the speaker side on the lean management, but it was so succinct that I think the more specific it would have been, the little longer discussion would have roused so many questions from other participants probably, and that would help the discussion.
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chakraborty, for your feedback. Next time when I'm doing this session, I will make sure that it is much broader than what I did. I just had a different thought process, but I take your suggestion, Mr. Chakraborty.
Thank
Thank
you so much.
you.
Thank you.
So, next we have uh, KP, K Prakash. Mr. K Prakash, would you like to say something? Mr. Prakash?
Or at least do an introduction of yourself, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Mr. Prakash, would you like to introduce yourself? Well, I don't think he wants to. I think he's too shy to do it. And next we have Manas Sarkar. Manas, would you like to say something?
Hello.
Hi, Manas, would you like to say something?
Yes,
Uh,
Manas, hear
am I
you.
audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you're audible.
Actually, I run a waste management startup. We are into last mile connectivity when it comes to the waste management industry. Now, we have been trying to organize this waste management process on lines of what I tried to sort of pick up on lean startup. But most of the operations here are largely manual. So we have not been able to implement any kind of a digitized kind of a software which can actually automate all this. But basically, we try to follow these lean management principles, and I think maybe with a greater scale, we'll be able to bring in some kind of software solution. So I am really looking forward to whether I can actually bring in some kind of automated solution to measuring the regular the flow of inventory, because that sometimes becomes kind of a challenge. So that is from my side. Would you can you suggest any kind of method by which I can actually manage this process better?
Sure. Thank you, Manas, for your question. First of all, let me understand this, size of your business. Which city are you operating, Manas, and what exactly, you know, do you mean by waste management startup? What exactly does it do, please?
Basically, we are operating in Kolkata. So basically, we have three verticals. One is we have actually tied up with multi-storied complexes, wherein on a specified day of a month, we directly source dry recyclable waste from the doorsteps, and we then bring it to a warehouse from where it is segregated and then sent to the respective recyclers. And this is the one vertical. Apart from that, we also act as a commissioned agent for industrial scrap from various SMEs. So basically, this inventory management is what we are struggling with, and we would like to try and sort of manage this better.
Okay. All right. What sort of inventory do you maintain? I'm trying to understand what do you have in your inventory, please?
Basically, it's all about any kind of dry waste, mostly paper, plastics, all kinds of metals segregated, and e-waste. So basically, it's basically all kinds of dry waste.
Okay. So if I understand your business correctly, Mr. Manas, you get waste from multi-story buildings or from industries, and then
Mhm.
you keep that waste in your warehouse, and from
Yes.
that warehouse it goes to some XYZ place.
Yes, we aggregate it and then send it to the recyclers.
Okay. And how often do you send it to recycler?
Usually, it all depends on the volumes, depends on what has accumulated and has, one whole truck would actually suffice. So basically, that is the way, but normally twice a week would be normal.
Okay. All right. And you are using your own vehicles to collect the waste as well as send it to the recycler, if I'm
No,
not.
these are all contracted vehicles.
Okay, contracted vehicles. All right. Let me ask you a few questions more, Manas, and hopefully we'll reach answers to it also. I'm not just asking questions.
Sure.
Uh, have you measured each step of the process that you have? And there would be sub processes inside each of these processes,
we
Manas.
have we have tried to break down the whole process into small steps that actually builds up the whole process, and we have tried to enforce some kind of standard operating procedure over the whole flow.
Okay. Have you measured the time for each of these sub processes?
Not exactly. The time component actually it varies so much that we are unable to really sort of get into exactly measuring the time.
Okay. If you have to give me reasons, why does it vary?
It all depends on the volume and sometimes also on the availability of a lot of other factors which come into play, which though we have tried to do it in a standard fashion, but sometimes a lot of other factors crop up and you have to take it sort of in your stride, and invariably the time varies. We have seen that in spite of our best efforts, the time eventually varies.
Sure, I understand. So, Ms. Manas, I do understand that the time varies, but we still would want to measure it, right?
Sure.
Only when we measure it, then we would realize how much it varied and then go into the reasons why something is taking more time. So I will try to, go through a simple example, but, of course, your business process is much more complicated than that. And this
Mhm.
is related to the production time at car companies, where they actually try to, calculate the time taken in each and every step, figure out what was the weak link which was causing these log jams, and then try to fix it. So if you are measuring time or you're not measuring time because people are not forcing enforcing it, then we
Hmm.
would want to do that. I know it's kind of a painful process, a lot of people would hate it, but if you show them the bigger picture on what you're trying to do, which is ensure that everyone goes home at time, which let's just say
Okay.
is 6 p.m. and not stay till 9 p.m. on certain days, if that is the goal that you want to give to people, and say that you have complained about xyz things, let's start measuring it, and we would like to achieve the result, which is everyone able to do more and probably get more salary, but at least go home at time because we are able to do more in the same time, that can motivate the people. So that's just one thing I want to suggest. Like,
Okay.
let's just say, you're ordering these trucks, currently sometimes the truck might come on time, might not come on time. But if
Yes.
you're able to measure it on what days it did come on time and what days it did not come on the time, you can ask the contractor to look at the data and measure the data again next week and or next month and say that things have either improved or you need to change the contractor. And I will tell you, Mr. Manas, I don't want to more or less talk like a professor who is theoretical. This is hard, and for people would say it is easy for you, Mr. Manas, to say that, but it is
Mhm.
hard for people to do it, because they would be doing it, and it might be even hard for you to look at the data and come to conclusion, because that is an extra work to force people to do. But unless and until we start measuring these things, it will not happen also. Let me ask you a few more questions here, Manas.
Sure.
Because you have inventory in your warehouse, is someone monitoring this inventory so that if you enter at the warehouse at any point of time, you can look at one Excel sheet? Forget about any software, how much paper you have, how much metal you have, and things like that. Are you doing that?
Once the segregation is over, we get the final measurements as to how much is stored in the warehouse, and we keep accumulating. And once it has acquired that critical volume, then we actually make arrangements for that to be sent to the recycler. But until it has been segregated and uh, put in one place, the measurement is not readily available.
Okay, all right. Um, do you reject some type of waste also because
Uh,
it's hard to segregate?
That is rarely, because at the time of collection, the collection helpers are trained in a way to sort of only pick up waste which has sort of resale value, and more or less, rarely do we see any kind of rejection.
Okay, all right. If I have to ask you one question, what is the biggest challenge you are facing, or
Uh,
what do you want to see as an outcome?
Basically, the biggest challenge has been with the marketing front, because somehow most of the resident welfare associations have been very lukewarm to our approaches. So basically, we still are more dependent on our SME clients, whereas we had initially started off focusing more on the housing segment, but somehow that hasn't contributed much. So we have to focus more on the SME segment.
Okay, what percentage of business would be your SME, roughly, plus minus?
SME would constitute almost 70% of our business.
Okay, do you think if you put all your sales and marketing effort from housing to SMEs, your top line would be much higher?
Can't say so, because the thing that we were doing in the housing segment was something that was sort of innovative. And unlike the SME segment, which organized supply chain is more or less available, the housing segment is one where there is sort of an innovation, and this is some kind of a new vertical. Unlike the already existing supply chain for SMEs, the one that we are doing in the housing complexes and all, this is something that is sort of a bit new, and a lot of other startups are trying it all over the country.
Okay, just a few last questions because
Sure.
other people have questions or not questions. I just want to give the opportunity. Did you start in housing? Did you start in SME?
We started in housing, but I mean, there wasn't much of a time difference because we were focusing on volumes. And from the very beginning, we had both the verticals.
Okay.
And
So the reason I said in housing is you might be emotionally attached to the housing. I could be wrong.
yes, no, no, yes, this is correct.
And
This is
but
a startup idea that we basically had in mind.
Yep. But your customer who's giving you the most value is actually your business or SMEs. But for variety of reasons, you are not focused enough on that. At times,
Hmm.
the market or the customer tells what we need to focus on. And this is out of not necessarily lean operation, but you might want to think about switching your entire focus and energy to SME. Unless you tell me, Manas, that I have already covered SMEs in Kolkata. I don't want to go outside of Kolkata, so I want to do housing. You might want to switch your entire focus to SMEs, but that will be a much longer discussion, Manas. So,
Sure.
few things. One is focus on what you think is driving the top line, not necessarily where you started. Second
Hmm.
is writing down the time for each and every process or sub process and looking at their data and making the adjustments based on that data. That's what I would suggest, Mr. Manas, in the limited time we have.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next.
Um,
Yeah. So next, Nitesh. Nitesh, would you like to ask any questions?
yeah, or if nothing else, just do a brief introduction, Nitesh. That would be helpful.
Uh, Hello.
Yes, we can hear you,
Yeah,
Nitesh.
great, great. Good evening, Mr. Sunil. Thanks, Abrinilla. So, Mr. Sunil, we run a software development company under the name of Rebin Infotech, and we are into services vertical as well as have our in-house products, two SaaS-based products and ERP products for garment manufacturing. So we have started understanding the concept of lean operations, and but we have not been able to implement it throughout the organization yet. So the initial pointers that you gave regarding Toyota, that had been a few good inputs. I'm sure I will need to do a bit more of study and get into a little bit of detail to understand these things and how can we implement in the organization.
Okay. Let me ask a few more questions about your business before
Yeah.
giving you any answers. Um, you said you're into software services. Software services could mean building a website, app, CRM, ERP, anything.
Yeah.
You talked about product where you said that those are focused on garment industry. What percentage of business is your services, and what percentage of your business is product? And then we will come into operations.
Okay. So right now, I will say our 75% of business comes from the services vertical,
Okay.
and 25% of the business comes from our product vertical because we launched all the products during this Feb, March, April. So it was like kind of a lockdown launching.
Sure. Okay. So you launch your product this year only, and that
Yeah.
is contributing 25% already.
Yes.
Even though due to COVID, you could not do much in terms
Correct.
of marketing and all that.
Correct.
And how long you been in business, Nitesh?
10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
So this is the first year for your products itself, is it?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So I would say that's a pretty good launch,
Mhm. Thank
even if
you.
there was no COVID. If
Thank
you
you.
launch anything in new
Mhm.
vertical that basically generates 25% of your top line within
Mhm.
1 year or 9 months,
Mhm.
that's a very good launch.
Correct.
Um, because if you keep on doing that,
Mhm.
then you would be growing at 25% a year after year, which is a really good growth
True.
for most companies, I would
Mhm.
say. Okay.
Okay.
Now you talked about operations. I want to understand what is operations at your company level? Because operations are typically associated with manufacturing companies or services companies where a lot of people are involved. Please, Nitesh.
So at the operations level, so we have two different set of people who look into the operations apart from the development and other team. Basically, we call them as the client account managers, wherein for our product, it's all about onboarding them, ensuring they have a good experience and stuff like that. And for the services vertical, it's all about communicating and coordinating so that things are delivered on time. So we are proud in that sense that we always have delivered almost 99% of our services domain before time.
Okay. All right. So basically, there is no problem as such because you're able to deliver 99% of time. So what is the outcome you would like to see, Nitesh?
I still feel there is a scope of optimization or uh, so our modus operandi is if we say like if we think that we take some sort of gap or we take some sort of buffer at the end before any delivery. That is one of the prime reasons we have been able to deliver that everything before time as per the client per se.
Sure.
But what I'm trying to see like how we can reduce that gap or how we can what we can optimize further. It's all about the services industry is all about having a feel good experience, giving a wow experience to the customers. So we
Sure.
are just trying to understand how what kind of operations we can introduce, what kind of procedures we can introduce to increase that.
All right. Sure. So I will come to that. But based on what you just told me so far, there are no major problems.
Okay.
You are doing much better than your peers on two aspects. First, or let's just say one important metric, you are able to deliver
Mm-hmm.
um, on time or before time 99% of time. That
Mm-hmm.
itself is a big metric. If you talk to any manufacturing company or
Mm-hmm.
any software company,
Mm-hmm.
they will tell you that project delays are part of the process, and people in the industry have accepted it. Simple, very simple. People have accepted project delays
Mm-hmm.
whenever software is involved. So if you are able to deliver
So
on
that's
time,
a punchline to that we say like okay, whatever we are committing, be rest assured that you will get that on that particular day.
so trust me, you are exceeding expectations already. If you just write that and people believe that you're able to do, they
Mm-hmm.
would say, "Sir, why don't you come and do the project instead of some random guy?" I'm just
Okay.
telling you, Nitesh, because I've been in software industry for a while, and there are challenges. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a few questions about your operation people. On the account managers, are they doing any cross selling also, where they are not just focused on what product the customer has bought, but other products they could buy?
Not really, because we have a very limited set of products, and the products are diversified. So we have an in-house CRM tool. We have launched a fixed asset management software, and we have launched a garment ERP. So all three are like somewhat not related to each other. Maybe we can say that a CRM tool and a fixed asset management tool are interrelated, and people might cross sell. But as of now, we are not doing that.
Sure. So I will tell you, if you go into the industry, I'm talking about the industry standards.
Mhm.
The account managers are not just supposed to just pick up the phone whenever the customer has a problem,
Okay.
but also suggest solutions and
Mhm.
drive top line also from that customer.
Okay.
It does not have to be like, okay, I will show up at your office only when I have to sell something.
Mhm.
Of course, he can go to the customer's place
Mhm.
to fix the problems also, but one of his incentives should also be how much new business he's able to sell or how much referrals he's able to get from that existing customer.
Okay.
You would want to give him incentives
Mhm.
based on these two parameters, and that's the industry standard. And things could improve over there. Account managers are typically the people who speak to the customers.
Correct.
They not only would be able to sell products, but they also should bring customer feedback for your
Mhm.
future set of products.
Okay.
Because your developers probably would not be talking to the customers until there is a bug. So you would want the account managers to cross sell, okay,
Okay.
or sell more,
Mhm.
and give incentives based on that, and then also bring customer feedback um, on new product lines or existing product lines. So you want to do that as part of the thing. On the project management side, since he's able to deliver what he promised,
Mhm.
what you would want to know is how much buffer are you putting in? Are you actually putting in 40% of buffer?
Not
If
really.
it is 10% of buffer or 20% of buffer, then it's fine. But
Okay.
you would want to basically reduce the buffer on,
Mhm.
let's just say, select one project or two project and
Mhm.
see if you are able to deliver,
Okay.
and then figure out why that was the case. Also, one more thing, whether it's a project manager or account manager, at most software companies, people
Mhm.
come, take requirements, maybe even show some screens. At times, that also does not happen. And then after 3 months, the product is shown to the customer, and the customer says, well, I expected slightly different, not exactly this.
Okay.
So if you are not involving your customer during the development, there is a scope of improvement. Of course, when the customer comes in, he will make a lot of suggestions. You have to put your foot down and say, these suggestions can be incorporated, these suggestions will cost money and additional time. But if you are able to at least involve the customer during the software development, he would be more happy at the end, and there is a good possibility that you could make more money, especially if he asks for more customization after looking at your first version, and the customer would be more happy with you versus another guy who
Mhm.
just showed up on day one after the check was sent for, let's just say, 25% of money, and
Mhm.
then at the end to do the demo and collect the remaining 75%. So that is
Correct.
something you might want to do.
Great.
So
So
in
two things
summary,
that I would
account
like to add
managers,
here, Mr. Sunil.
cross selling, and new product feedback on project managers do reduce the time, and
Mhm.
try to bring see what happens over there, and involve the customer not just at the start, at the end, but in the middle also at key milestones. Nitish, that's what I would suggest.
Thank you so much for the great insights, Mr. Sunil. So, two things that I would like to actually one thing and that I would like to say, and one question that I have. So, we are already involving our customers during the development cycle. So, it's like we have bi-weekly meetings to keep them engaged and let them know like where to, what are they expecting, where are the challenges and stuff like that. So that we are already taking care of. You mentioned about giving incentive based on incentives to the account managers for bringing business to the top line. So what percentage of the overall business do you think account managers like should be contributing for in cross selling or bringing new customers, new business to the organization? What is the industry standard in that?
I would start with 10% and see where that leads.
Okay, okay, great, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input.
Sure. Thank you, Nitesh. um,
I think we are done. So, um, thank you, everyone. So, Sunil, thank you so much for your time. And we were really overwhelmed that you agreed to come to the session and take the session. And we hope to have you in another session sometime in the near future. And I would also like to update all our attendees that we are holding a TiE clinic, a legal TiE clinic on 17th December. So please sign up for it. And thank you so much.
yep.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
Sunil.
much.
Yeah.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.